During Australia's Black Summer wildfires of 2019, several firefighters of the New South Wales Rural Fire Service were working in the path of an oncoming blaze, when a sudden weather change caused them to endure some of the most horrifying fire behavior imaginable. Above them, a massive pyrocumulonimbus cloud, a thunderhead created out of wildfire smoke, had generated damaging winds below it, where the firemen were working. The wind, howling at speeds well beyond what would be expected from an average wildfire, and the sudden rush of heated air, embers and smoke, were intense enough to force the firefighters to drive out of the area. Two of the firemen rode in the cab of the fire engine, while the third rode on the back. Without realizing it, the truck was caught in the winds of a giant fire tornado. There was no time, terrain, or visibility that would permit the driver to change course on a dime when this was realized. Nearby, scorching winds of up to 320 kilometers per hour, or 198 miles per hour, threw embers in all directions, uprooted burning trees and threw them like missiles up to 100 meters away. The wind was powerful enough to suck the two firemen out of the cab, while flipping the 10-ton fire engine sideways, leaving all three pinned to the ground as the fire burned through the area around them in a matter of seconds. One of the firemen suffered minor burns to his airways, and another suffered serious burns to his face as the fire tornado moved past them. Despite their injuries, the firefighter who had been driving the truck and the one riding on the back managed to free themselves. However, the third firefighter died of asphyxiation when he was pinned directly underneath the overturned fire truck and left unable to breathe properly in the hellish conditions. Doug Inglis and his partner Jenny Gusse made the pursuit of nature their entire life. When they weren't pursuing agricultural research at the University of Lethbridge, they were camping, hiking, canoeing, or backpacking the Canadian wilderness. One of these expeditions was made in Banff National Park, beginning on Monday, September 25th, 2023. It was a park they had been to many times before, and throughout their excursion, they checked in regularly with relatives by text, using an in-reach satellite communicator. The trip was unfolding normally well into Friday, September 29th. They reported a delay in their normal routine just before 5 p.m. that afternoon. At around 8 p.m., the emergency SOS button on their inReach device was activated, and it wasn't long before their family members found out why. A text message soon followed, which simply stated, "Bear attack. Bad." No further information was forthcoming. The hours that followed would be terrifying and maddening for rescuers, not to mention Doug and Jenny's families, and assuming they were still alive, Doug and Jenny at the camp. A helicopter could not be dispatched to their location because of bad weather, and rescuers had to drive into the park by road, leave a nearby ranch on all-terrain vehicles, and then search the general area in which the campsite was located on foot in the middle of the night. At 1:15 a.m., a bear was shot and killed by a rescue team when it tried to attack them in the darkness. It was revealed through DNA analysis that this was the same bear responsible for the reported attack on Doug and Jenny. The rescue team finally reached their campsite minutes after the second bear attack, and 5 hours after the fateful text message was received. Both Doug and Jenny were found deceased, their bodies beside each other outside the tent, which was completely crushed. Their dog had also been mauled to death along with them. 2 empty cans of bear spray lay nearby. Their boots were still stored inside the tent, indicating that they had turned in for the night. at which point they must have been surprised by the bear. Presumably, they went out to scare the creature off, and signs of a struggle apparently moved around the campsite. It is not known how long Doug or Jenny remained alive after the attack before they died, or which of them alerted their relatives to the bear attack via text. The horrific news about the mauling reached their families shortly after noon the next day, and the attack sent a chill of terror throughout Canada, a country normally packed with outdoor enthusiasts and opportunities. The Japan tsunami of March 11, 2011, took the lives of 19,000 people in Japan itself. But although tsunamis often cover entire oceans to varying degrees, major tsunamis are relatively rare events in the United States. So when a tsunami warning was issued for California early in the morning of March 11th, a group of 3 men in their mid-20s decided to go down to the Pacific shoreline in Northern California's Del Norte County in order to take pictures of the incoming wave. They reached the point where the Klamath River meets the Pacific Ocean and waited anxiously for the giant, theatrical waves to appear. However, most of the time, tsunamis aren't very visible when they aren't interacting with coastal geography or human settlements. In open water, they can easily pass for normal waves until they reach shore. Thinking they must have arrived too early, the group of friends got bored and started skipping rocks into the river not far from the shore, standing on a small spit of sand that divides the river from the Pacific. 1 hour went by, then 2 hours. At that point, the water level on shore suddenly rose between 5 and 8 feet in less than a minute. First, the surge roared down the Klamath River. The trio of amateur photographers was completely unprepared. 2 of the 3 friends realized that they were boxed in by the flooding river on one side and by the shore perpendicular to them on the other. The third, Dustin Weber, was too far out onto the spit of land to notice the surge of water anywhere but inside the riverbed, and was fascinated by the sudden increase in its intensity and flow. Dustin's 2 friends were closest to higher ground and attempted to get their friend's attention. However, with his back to the shoreline, he was unable to see the unstoppable tide bearing down on him, and was unable to hear his friends calling for him because the water in the river was too loud. As the mass of water started to approach, Dustin's 2 friends ran down onto the spit to get his attention. The closest they got to Dustin was an arm's length away, but by then, the sudden flood of water started to drag him back into the ocean. One of Dustin's friends later said that they had managed to almost grab a part of his shirt, but that was the closest they could get before he disappeared into the water. His 2 friends were barely able to make it back to safety themselves. The wave's arrival was so sudden and quick that it would later be described as coming not out of the water, but out of the shoreline. For days, Dustin's family members, friends, and emergency personnel meticulously searched miles upon miles of Northern California beaches, trying to find him. It seemed possible that he might be alive, perhaps pushed back to shore shortly after being taken, or maybe rescued by a boat. It had happened before, including in Japan on that same day. Sadly, such hopes, if they were harbored for long, were to no avail. Dustin's lifeless body was found washed ashore on April 2nd, 2011, nearly 400 miles from where he had been swept out to sea, and almost a month after the fact. His death was the first in the continental United States caused by a tsunami since the tsunami caused by the Alaska earthquake of 1964. In the years since, a memorial bench has been dedicated to him in Crescent City, California, where the tsunami waves inflicted significant damage on that fateful day.